All right, so the stock market's nuked, Bitcoin has nuked, crypto has nuked. What on earth is going on that is making all the markets nuked and make our portfolios go into the toilet? That's what we're going to be answering in today's video. And of course, I'm going to be showing you what I've done to try and take advantage of this move. More than 700 billion has been wiped out from the US stock market today. So we have the Magnificent Seven down between 1% and 3%, 3.5% for Microsoft there. We see Amazon did come down, but it isn't actually as low as it got recently, about a week ago at 196,000 at approximately $200. I did share on this channel that I was actually starting to average into Amazon. I don't really buy individual stocks apart from CleanSpark and of course BMNR, which I have nuked myself on BMNR, but I'm going to hold and we'll see what happens. But I noticed that Amazon was going down, 25% down. And I personally think that this is an incredible opportunity for anyone who believes in the company of Amazon. Now, just like when Bitcoin starts to collapse, I believe that a dollar cost averaging strategy is the best as long as I'm willing to hold these assets for 10 years. Now, with Bitcoin moving down, as you know, I've been trying to watch closely. Let me get my other chart up here. I've been watching this closely to find an opportunity. As you know, I think the liquidity sits below this region, and in this region right here. So we've come to grab the liquidity here so far with this push to 63,100. I still think that before any substantial bounce, we may come down to check the liquidity here. However, using the data that I like to look at every day, we see that there's $8.7 billion worth of shorts and almost just $1 billion of longs. So last time I opened a significant position, long position in Bitcoin, we had under $1 billion in longs and we had just over 10 billion in shorts. So we're getting very close to that. We're coming down to grab the liquidity zones. We're in the region where everybody thinks we're going lower in the short term. I actually do think we're still going to go lower in the longer term in this bear market. We have to agree that the 4-year cycle currently is still intact unless we get a big substantial bounce back above 100K. But right now, there's no reason to fight it, but I do think we'll get another bounce. Just like when I went long here, we bounced up. I made about $18,000 of profit. So my plan is to repeat that if we get a bounce. However, I'm going to be laddering in because I think there's still a chance to grab this liquidity here. However, this is looking very favorable. So I have just opened a long position here. I get my big head out the way. I got 5 Bitcoin open here. Average open 63,148. We got a little bit of profit here. And then what I can do, I'm waiting patiently because what I want to do is I would like to move my stop loss into potentially break even, or depending on how the market reacts right now, I might put some buy orders in. So see right there, I reckon there's a big bit of liquidity, and of course here. So I may just average in something like that, right? Just maybe come up to 10 Bitcoin in total, and then average, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, adding Bitcoin on the way down. But I'll keep this, I'll keep adding or figuring out what's going on depending on the market. The reason why I'm not setting up the buys right now is just in case something happens with Iran and the macro. So I'm watching this very closely. Break even, stop loss will probably be put in, and then I'll just wait patiently. I would say that the likelihood of this being stopped out if I put a break-even stop loss is very high, right? So protecting capital at all costs is of course most important, and this is a very risky trade to be doing in a market environment like this. We jump into the news, guys. According to Bull Theory, after the 10 a.m. manipulation, we now have the 8 p.m. manipulation. Bitcoin has dumped $2,000 and dropped below 63,000, wiping out 130 million in longs. 60 billion was erased from the crypto market in 4 hours with no negative news or events. I would disagree slightly. I would say that the stock market crashing 1% for the S&P, 1.6% Dow Jones, Coinbase down 6%. The stock market coming down quite significantly, I think, does have an effect on the market. However, I do think that it's a very favorable place to at least be DCAing right now. I've actually, as I told you guys, my plan, I did buy at 60K, but I'm going to buy even more at 60K in the spot market. And then my ladder goes heavier and heavier and heavier all the way down to the $30,000 region in case we go that low. Even lower I still have dry powder left with the amount of money I want to put in to average about $40,000 Bitcoin, which that's the price I paid for Bitcoin in 2022, you know, the first dip. So I'd be very happy. I think Bitcoin 10 years goes to $1 million. Why would I not want to buy Bitcoin at 40K or average my price? And again, guys, I know for a fact I will not put all of my capital in at 40K. It won't happen, right? So I think this is the very best way for me to go about it. It's not potentially not the best way for you to go about it, right? So just use me as a entertainment piece, and you can see how it goes for me. But you can see historical values: extreme fear, extreme fear, extreme fear, extreme fear. We've stayed in extreme fear. Let's go to max. You see this cluster here. The last time Bitcoin was this scared for this amount of time, and it never even got this bad, was in May 22. May to June 2022. Let's just go over to Bitcoin in May to June 2022. June, right? This is this period, May to June, right? Bitcoin was this scared. So you managed to get Bitcoin at 29K and at 18K and at 24K in the same amount of fear in the market. I'm not saying this is the same, right? But it could be the same, right? It could be. It could also be something like this, or it could be most likely just the start. Well, the first third of the bear market. Remember, this period right here only takes 365 days. A lot of people blow this out of proportion, which is why heavy DCA for me is most important on the way down, because I know from the history this doesn't last as long as what people expect. And then everyone's like, well, Conor, you bought here, but Bitcoin took, 1,000 days or whatever it was to get back to the price it was. So you just lost money, you just wasted money, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that doesn't even make any sense. Because if I bought 40K, that's where I started, just like here was the first buy. I think it was around this drop right here. But with first buy here, and then heavy DCA, I want it to go significantly lower, averaging my price, for example, here. So by the time Bitcoin goes from the low just up 60%, I start to make profit. And then my profit continues from that region 422% rather than doing absolutely nothing and only getting 82%. This is the thing that people don't seem to understand about DCA. But the most important thing about DCA is not to DCA into something that you won't hold for 10 years, right? According to history, you got to hold for about 4 years for Bitcoin to get into profit. So don't be DCAing if you're not willing to hold. Don't be DCAing if you don't actually believe in Bitcoin. And sure as hell, don't be DCAing into Bitcoin if you're just listening to some lunatic like me on the internet. And that's the reason why you're doing it. All right, guys? So keep that in mind. And guys, I'll see you in the next one.